the inland of Norway. And 50 years later, around 1200, a great cathedral stood finished here at Domkirkeodden. And it looked like this. You entered through the main door here, and there were two great towers at both sides of the main entrance. And the main tower was where the 4 lamps are hanging in the roof today. And if you want to imagine how it was like to be in this room during the medieval times, you have to maybe just close your eyes, because this was not a light room like this, but it was dark. The only natural lighting, only natural light in this room came from the windows on top of the pillars. And the room was also lit up by candles on different places in the church, on different altars for different saints, since this, of course, was a Catholic church. And you might have heard Gregorian chants, but not by a woman's voice, because this was not a church for regular people like you and me, and not a lot of women were in here, because this was a church for the bishop, a church for the priests and the monks. And during the time that the bishop stayed here, this bishopric, this area became richer and richer, and he had to make the church bigger and nicer. So the church went from this Romanesque style and to Gothic style in the 1300s and 1400s. So they extended the church. They made the spire and the tower here even longer. So the tower was actually 50 meters high. So to imagine how tall that tower would have been, you have to put 2 of these glass cathedrals on top of each other.
Wow.
One of our greatest authors, her name is Sigrid Undset. She described how it might have been to be in this room when it was a great cathedral. And I will give you a quote from her book of Kristin Lavransdatter, but it will be in Norwegian. But Kristin describes how coming in here feels just like walking into the mountain. Det var som å gå inn i berget, syntes Kristin, da de steg inn i kirkens forhall. Det slo mørkt og koldt mot dem. De gikk gjennom en dør, og der møtte gammel, kold lukt av røkelse og vokslys. Kristin var i et mørkt og veldig høyt rom. Hun kunne ikke se til bunns i mørket, hverken over seg eller til sidene, men der brente et lys på et alter langt fremme. Der sto en prest, og gjenlyden av hans stemme listet besynderlig omkring i rommet, som pust og hviskninger. It took about 50 years to build this church, and it stood as a great symbol of that Christianity had finally come to Hedmarken in 300 or more than 300 years. But in the 1500s, the beginning of the end of this church started. In 1537, the Reformation came to Hamar, and the bishop here, he was removed, he was put in jail, and the bishopric was now a part of Oslo. So the church here, it lost a lot of its meaning. It was no longer a great symbol, and people didn't recognize it in the same way. And only 30 years later, we were in war with the Swedes. It was the Nordic 7-year war. And the Swedes came here, and their mission to take down Akershus fortress in Oslo and conquer all of Norway was failed. And they went back to Sweden, but on their way home, the Swedish king said to his soldiers that they did not get any salary from the war, just what they could get and what they could steal on their way home to Sweden. So on their way home to Sweden, they stopped here at Hamar, and they burned down the whole town. And they destroyed the fortress right behind me with big cannons, and they put it on fire. And the fire from the fortress, it spread over to the roof of the church, which was a great wooden construction. And so it caught fire and fell down, and a lot of the stones of the church also were torn down. And so it stood, and it's open to the weather, and all of the farmers around here who started using the stones here as building material for their own farms, and also other churches around here are built with stones from this church. So one can say that in 1567 the medieval town of Hamar, it disappeared. And so this church, it was more and more destroyed.